Now then, Vinyl Monkey here, welcome everybody. I think I've said before on this channel that the 1980s, yeah, it was a funny old time for me. I'd been right into the punk scene, I'd been into all the sort of scenes that predated that, rock, prog, blues, all of those, and really enjoyed the music from those eras. But I think what was happening globally, politically, and everything, I went on a real downer, and I sort of associated a lot of the 80s music with its, I don't know, it's sort of the fashion and the digital thin sort of production sounds and everything that was starting to come out then. I sort of went on a real musical downer, and as a result, I mean, what I did was I relied on listening to a lot of the old farts. I went back into the big names, the Van Morrison, Bob Dylan, Neil Young, all of those sorts of people, and I listened to them, and as a result I missed lots and lots of good stuff, some of which I'm sort of slowly catching up with, and but I think on this channel I've probably done the 80s a real disservice. Most of my videos are set in the late 60s, late 70s, and not much from the 80s. So I thought I'd show just 10 great albums from the 1980s that I haven't shown before. I don't think I've shown before, but they're brilliant albums. And the first two are from, I'm going to go in chronological order again. The first two are from 1980, and it's two bands both born in Liverpool, Echo and the Bunnymen and The Teardrop Explodes, and both, I think, because they're both Liverpool bands, because they're both sort of producing their early albums around the same time. I mean, I say early albums, Echo and the Bunnymen have sustained obviously all the way since then and are still going, and I seen them actually in Hartlepool about 10 years ago. Fantastic, a great live band. Teardrop Explodes, I think they only lasted a couple of albums really, but because they were both from Liverpool, because they emerged at a similar time, inevitably there were comparisons, but this is Echo and the Bunnymen's Crocodiles, and this is Teardrop Explodes Kilimanjaro, but they're both great albums, but both quite different. This one's much darker and moodier and much more somber. It's got melody and it's got those sort of jagged guitars, and it's a great sound, but it's altogether darker. This one's much bouncier, much lighter. It's got horns right up front. It's uplifting. It's a good sort of pop record. I mean, perhaps this one might be my, because I'm a moody sort of darker sort of person, or I tend towards that sort of music. This one might be my least favourite out of the 10 I'm going to show today. But both cracking albums, both from 1980, Echo and the Bunnymen's Crocodiles and The Teardrop Explodes Kilimanjaro. Next it's the year after, 1982, and this is Japan, Tin Drum. And this was Japan's last album. I'm not sure, it was fourth, fifth, sixth album, but it ended up being their last album. Japan, led by David Sylvian, who went on to produce some great solo albums. But this one is absolutely fantastic. I think this is unique. It's ahead of its time. I mean, you can hear elements of maybe, later Roxy music, Talking Heads, Bowie sort of Berlin-y sort of era stuff in there, but this is absolutely superb, and as I say, unique. I mean, I love the sound on this album, the bass, the percussion, the synthesizers, absolutely superb. If there's a theme, it's around the Chinese Cultural Revolution. There's a picture of Mao there, and David Sylvian sat underneath in sort of Chinese garb, and there's a great poster goes with it as well. I don't know whether I've got time to open it all up. It shows the band in a similar sort of setting. There we are, yeah. So as I say, absolutely unique. I think it's made me rediscovering this. I mean, anybody who had hair like that, you can see that in the early 80s, I dismissed them as sort of I don't know, wet, drippy. I was just so disappointed that, you know, punk hadn't changed anything, and you know, we were going back to some sort of fashion-led, thin, superficial, pappy, crappy stuff. That, as I say, I missed loads and loads of stuff, and this is just absolutely brilliant. I can't speak highly enough of this album. This is perhaps one of my favourites of these 10 I'm going to show. It's Japan's Tin Drum from 1981. The next one from 1982 is totally different, probably to the rest of them, and this is Donald Fagen's The Nightfly. Donald Fagen was one half of Steely Dan, and this, like a lot of Steely Dan albums, I think it really divides people. You know, I think some people, and I can see both sides, but some people appreciate the sort of slick, sophisticated style to the music and to the lyrics, and other people just think it's just too slick, too over the top, too smarmy, too, you know. But I think this is typical of Steely Dan, Donald Fagen. It's the concept here is sort of late 50s, early 60s America. It's done in a sort of almost cinematic sort of film style, and it is what it is. It's a stylish album, very sophisticated, very slick, very stylish, very good. Donald Fagen, The Nightfly, 1982. The next one, this is Nick Haywood, and look, when I would have seen that and the focus on the hair and the hair on the back, and his previous band Haircut 100, I just dismissed them as absolute nonsense at the time. But this is an album of beautifully crafted, you know, quite mature sort of pop love songs, really superbly done. There's a maturity, there's a heft about the songwriting, and there's a superb cast of guest musicians on here. I mean, they've spared no costs, I don't think, with the musical talent they've brought in and the production on this album. And this is North of a Miracle, by the way, from 1983. It's just a lovely album, and it's timeless. It hasn't got that thin 1980s production. They've gone right over the top on production, actually, which renders it hard. If you heard this in isolation, you'd probably find it hard to date. If you see the haircuts, you can obviously date it in the fashion, but yeah, great stuff. Nick Haywood, North of a Miracle. Also from 1983 was this one by XTC, the brilliant Andy Partridge's band. This is Mummer, and this album, I think, I mean, I've talked before about the album that preceded this, English Settlement, the double album, superb, and the one that followed this, Skylark, and I think both of those get perhaps more credit than this one does. But this is a brilliant album. This was an album that followed Andy Partridge's mental health sort of breakdown, which resulted in XTC not touring anymore. They become a studio band. But it's really lovely, poignant stuff. I mean, I love the opener, the anti-war song, Beating of Hearts. Brilliant stuff. And then the gorgeous Love on a Farm Boy's Wages. It's just, yeah, typical XTC. Great stuff. Intelligent. Yeah, lovely. XTC, Mummer, 1983. The next one, we're jumping to 1985, and I've got two extremely different albums from 1985. We've got the Pogues, Rum, Sodomy and the Lash, and the Cure, The Head on the Door. And I'll start with the Pogues, and I mean, look at that cover. It's the they've taken the brilliant painting by French artist Jericho, the raft of the Medusa, and imposed the sort of the band's heads on some of the characters' bodies there. But if anybody was ever in doubt about the absolute genius and authenticity of Shane MacGowan's songwriting, this is the go-to album, I think. From the opening song, The Sick Bed of Gaelic's not great, Cuchulainn Lane, to the Old Main Drag, and then ending the side, the brilliant Pair of Brown Eyes and Sally McLennan, and then also covering songs that his versions are just so good. People think of them as Shane MacGowan Pogues songs, Dirty Old Town, and then closing the album a sort of 8 or 9 minute version of Waltzing Matilda, another anti-war song. But this is just brilliant album. It's superbly produced by Elvis Costello. It's maybe the Pogues' finest hour, I think. This is one I didn't miss at the time. I did pick up on the Pogues, and this is an album, it just, I don't know, it makes you want to drink, it makes you want to dance, it makes you, sometimes you want to fight, and it certainly makes you want to cry. It's just an album that really moves you. Brilliant stuff. Rum, Sodomy and the Lash by the Pogues. In the same year I mentioned The Cure. This is Head on the Door. It opens with that perfect pop song, In Between Days. And this is a band that, I did sort of just totally pretty much ignore in the 80s at the time, and but now the more I hear them, the more I see them on videos or clips or festivals that they're playing or wherever, the more I like them. I just absolutely love this band, and this is a real one of a whole number of top-notch albums that they produced right through the 80s and into the 90s. So brilliant stuff. The Cure, Head on the Door. Next is 1986, and this is Public Image Limited, John Lydon. This is album, brilliant packaging, the sort of no-nonsense. He sort of got there before, long before the supermarkets went in for this sort of no frills sort of packaging and he's done this as a response to the sort of I guess the over the top stuff that was around at the time. And this is a really eclectic mix of musicians and also an eclectic mix of styles. I suppose critically it's not regarded as one of Public Image's best albums, but it's great stuff. I mean it's got musicians ranging from Ginger Baker to Steve Vai on here. It's produced by the brilliant Bill Laswell. It includes the song Rise, with its sort of South African type rhythms, and the great refrain, Anger is an Energy, and Lydon's on superb form on this album. Brilliant stuff, interesting stuff, always interesting, always relevant. John Lydon's Public Image Limited album from 1986. And then the last one on me 10, I mean this one I totally missed. I'd heard of them but never given them any credence whatsoever. This is Yellow. This is their album Flag, and it was only about 2 or 3 years ago when on YouTube one of their recent singles or videos popped up, Wubba Dubba I think it was, or something, Wabba Dubba, something like that. And I thought, bloody hell, this is unusual, this is odd. And so the next time I seen a Yellow album when I was rooting around the record shops, I picked it up, and I just love this. It's Yellow are two I shouldn't like them really, because they're two Swiss guys, and Switzerland's one of those countries I'd rather it didn't exist, really. I think if I ever become a top-notch dictator, I may well invade Switzerland first, I think, and annex it off to neighbouring countries, but for reasons I won't bore you with now. But Boris Blanc, the composer, arranger, and Dieter Meier, who's a sort of millionaire industrialist, professional gambler, golfer, teamed up and produced this sort of electronic, rhythmic, unique, funny, witty sort of stuff. It's just brilliant. I mean, the opening track, Tied Up, with its Afro-Cuban rhythms. I might even stick a bit on now while I'm finishing this video. Oh, you probably can't hear me now, but you can hear them in the background. Brilliant, brilliant, unique stuff. This is Flag by Yellow, and this is part of the opening track, Tied Up. And so there are 10 albums from the 80s that I've sort of, most of them pretty much passed me by, but definitely worth investigating. And I'll see you next time for what will be my 100th video. So cheers and bye for now, and I'll let you out with Yellow. I was hoping he was going to break into the singing. I love Dieter Meier's singing, and lyrics is really, really funny. But anyway, I've just stuck it on randomly as sort of a bit of an instrumental. So anyway, look it up for yourself if you're not familiar with it. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Catch you later. Ta-da.